who had the means, motive, and opportunity to commit this locked door murder?
A good old-fashioned whodunit.
Why, hello there. Welcome back to Mystery for Two. I'm Katie.
I'm Jack.
Do I say Mystery for Two podcast or Mystery for Two?
You've definitely said Mystery for Two podcast
In
before.
the past?
For sure.
Okay, well, I'd like to edit the intro to include the word podcast if you weren't already aware that this is indeed a podcast. But welcome.
Well, before we get into my question of the week, we're actually going to go back to last week's question and have a look at some of the answers. So for those of you that are listening in for the first time this week, or if you forgot last week's question.
How dare you?
I know.
How
dare you?
You got to listen to part one of this story before you listen to part two.
True, this is a part one, part two.
Right, but...
Anyhow, last week's question was, what would your death row meal be? Sally from Texas wrote in Whataburger.
Oh, I've heard of that.
I've heard of Whataburger, but it's only available, we don't have one in New York, for example.
Right. Do we?
No.
Really?
I'm convinced we don't have one. But
I defer to you.
Whataburger with cheese, mustard, pickles only. So I know that would get your vote as well.
I love a pickle. I've never met a pickle I haven't liked.
Toasted on both sides.
Ooh.
So these are the little details that I love to hear. I wouldn't personally be a buns toasted on my burger, but...
Have you had a toasted bun? You don't like your buns toasted?
I do not like my buns toasted. I do not.
Wow.
They could have a double meaning. I don't know what. My head's in the gutter.
A double entendre? No, let's leave it at that.
Buns
toasted.
Let's leave
it at that.
I just love the balance here from Alexis in Chicago. Stuffed shells, last meal, but with a side of Caesar salad and McDonald's Dr. Pepper.
Dr. Pepper.
So not the McDonald's Diet Coke, Dr. Pepper getting its moment in the limelight.
Is there a cherry Dr. Pepper?
Yeah.
Okay, I think I've tried that, but I don't think I've had original recipe Dr. Pepper in my life. I need to try it.
Maybe we go nuts this weekend and we have a can of Dr. Pepper. We can really let our hair down.
Live life on the edge.
We can.
No, I'd love to have some Dr. Pepper this weekend.
Alrighty. Well, I apologize if I didn't decide to read your comment. It was not anything personal, but need to get on to this week's question for the week. And this one I expect some very good answers for. And it is, what would be your go-to karaoke song?
Excellent question, Jack. I forget what your go-to song is. Is it Creed?
No.
It's not Creed.
I knew Creed would be up there. Creed would be would always...
Is it Lips of an Angel?
No.
No? Oh. I should know this. I'm really upset that I don't know it. What is it?
Champagne Supernova.
Oh, duh.
Oasis. I mean, you've only seen me do probably about 5, 6, 7 renditions live. I think the key with a good karaoke song, it's not necessarily even your favourite song or one that you know all the words to, it's what engages the crowd. What's an easy one for the crowd? I feed off the crowd's energy. There's a karaoke bar in the city called AWOL, and it's the only experience I ever feel of I'm a rock star, because I'm on stage. There's a stage, definition of a stage, it's raised probably 2 inches off the ground, and there's maybe 50 to 200 people in there at a time. And if you get the crowd going, it's electric.
Love Story, Taylor Swift is my go-to karaoke song, because it's just such a fun song to sing, and everyone knows it, so it's a great song.
But anyway, without further ado, I think we need to get back to part 2.
Yeah.
Because we have a unfinished business.
Yeah, we have a murder to solve.
To say the least.
We have a murder to solve in this episode, and it's gruesome. We started with part 1 last week. Part 2 this week. We'll dive into the investigation and the trial surrounding the death of Julia Wallace. And a lot of people at this point in our story are pointing their fingers at the husband, at William Herbert Wallace. And so we're going to debunk whether or not he's guilty today.
I think we need to do a quick 60 seconds recap what happened, where are we at?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because we need to make sure. What
are the key incidents, key moments of last week's episode?
Right, so we can be fresh.
Yeah.
So you can really give your 2 cents on what you think, on who you think done it. So, a little backstory. We're in Liverpool, England, Jack's favorite place. Jack doesn't love Liverpool purely because of soccer reasons. It's January of 1931, and in a tightly packed working class neighborhood called Anfield, a woman named Julia Wallace is found murdered in the parlor room of her home. Prior to this, William Herbert Wallace, her husband, a reserved, chronically ill insurance agent, and Julia, a quiet, artistic woman, lived a seemingly very normal life. On Monday, January 19th, 1931, William attended chess club, although he showed up late, and in his absence, a mysterious phone call came in from a man calling himself R.M. Qualtrough and asking to meet William the following night about an insurance matter at a fictional address that turns out doesn't exist. The next day, Tuesday, January 20th, William followed his normal routine, left home on the tram that evening to try to find this mysterious address, and spent nearly 2 hours wandering around Liverpool asking strangers and even a police officer for directions, and never found it. When William returned home around 8:45 p.m., he found the doors to his house locked from the inside. After struggling with the door in front of his neighbors, the Johnsons, William entered the house and discovered his wife Julia brutally murdered in the parlor with his bloody, partially burned Macintosh raincoat beneath her body. $85 in today's money was missing from William's insurance cash box, but Julia's purse and jewelry were untouched. There was no sign of forced entry, no obvious murder weapon, and the house appeared to have been locked up tight. This is the question here, who had the means, motive, and opportunity to commit this locked door murder?
A good old-fashioned whodunit.
Yeah, except for it's real life, and absolutely devastating to think about walking into this type of situation, like your wife brutally murdered on the floor, and underneath her body is your raincoat, and you're thinking, I'm putting myself in William's shoes, if he's innocent, like this is devastating, but also looks really bad for me.
That was going to be my point. As of right now, I'm pointing my finger and the blame and chucking William in jail.
Okay.
I think he murdered his wife. He's got an insurance background. He was chronically ill.
He wanted the money.
Your average citizen in that, time period didn't have much money. Yeah. I think it's an insurance play.
I'm going to kick things off by saying that the investigation was flawed from the start. These police officers, in my humble opinion, granted it was the 1930s, didn't do a great job with the investigation, and that really muddied everything from there on out. Like day one.
Like they messed up the crime scene, evidence could have been tampered or affected, right. That sort of thing.
Yeah, we'll get into it. So, like I said before, the Wallace's neighbors, the Johnsons, were in the house walking around, which granted you can't really do much about considering like they were there when, or shortly after, like seconds after William discovered the body, they like came running in. So like that's inevitable that you're going to get like those fingerprints and like those
foot marks.
Like the police hadn't even been called yet, but like, so they were kind of contaminating the scene, like investigating things that were awry and whatnot. But
pre-DNA, that time period, I'm curious to, maybe there was also less of a standard of, keeping a crime scene, necessarily untouched.
Right. Well, you could still dust for fingerprints back then. Fingerprints were still important, before even like the DNA.
Sure, you wouldn't
of
want
like strands of hair or like,
Correct. You wouldn't want any man and his dog just waltzing into the crime scene. But
right.
Yeah, I don't think it's as tight as it is in today's world.
Certainly not. But anyway, so when the investigators finally showed up to the scene, they talked to William, who was in the back kitchen cutting up meat for Julia's cat, Puss. Remember, Puss was missing.
So Puss came back.
Puss had returned to the house.
Did Puss do it?
So
Puss is a suspect.
Puss was Julia's beloved cat, and he had gone missing, and she was upset about it the night that William had come back from chess. She was like noticeably distraught about this cat, Puss. And this detail like made my heart ache that like the cat returned, but Julia was gone. Julia was gone forever, but the cat returned, which makes me sad. So like naturally, I mean, this brutal murder happened, and we find William not, next to his wife's body, but cutting up meat for this cat. And at first people were looking at this and they're like, this is a little suspicious. Like, why is he? But then again, people process grief in different ways.
Yeah. You go into shock. The fact, you just kind of go into your normal routine. You've still got to feed your pets. Right.
So as he's doing this, the investigators are chatting with him. They checked William for any blood evidence because let's be real, like they always, like we said, they always suspect the husband first, and for good reason because of statistics. But William had not even a speck of blood on him. He was clean of any blood. No scratches.
No like defensive marks,
wounds.
Yeah.
Nothing. Okay, he was clean. So this is where the investigation like gets botched by the police officers and by like the people on the scene, in my opinion, and a lot of people's opinion. So one of the detectives, we covered this last week, but one of the detectives showed up to the scene drunk, straight from the pub. And this particular detective went upstairs in the house and potentially used and flushed the toilet, which at first glance, like, okay, maybe that's not super crucial, like maybe, but another law enforcement officer had been up there just before this happened and had seen a blood stain, like a blood clot, they called it, like a little drop of blood in or on the toilet. And this is the only blood that they've found in the home apart from, in and around Julia's body.
And that was gone after the drunk police officer used and cleaned up, I guess.
Yeah, like it disappeared. So they're assuming a lot of fingers were being pointed. They're like, who did it? But someone destroyed this evidence, which could have been crucial, like before it was
analyzed,
back and tagged. But also some could say like, it could have been just like perfectly normal blood. Like blood in or on a toilet is not like unheard of, especially for, if there's women in the house and they're having their period or something like. But that was a big mistake that like today would never happen. Also, the police had decided to use up all of the Wallace's milk to feed Puss the cat, who was left in the house as they continued their investigation, which, seems like a very sweet thing to do. Mind you, this cat's been missing for like who knows how long at this point, but the milk was evidence. If you remember, this was the milk that had been delivered by the milk boy, Alan, the last person to see her alive. And once again, they were contaminating the scene and using up what could have been very valuable evidence. Or, maybe the milk wasn't even valuable, but still, like a good investigator wouldn't disrupt any evidence in a scene, especially crucial things like that. Also, the cat, like, should not have been just, like, roaming around. Can you imagine, like, just seeing the cat roaming around the dead body? Like, not a place for a cat.
Puss had been gone for a while, comes back into just craziness.
Chaos. So Professor John McFall, who was the pathologist who conducted the postmortem of Julia's body, initially placed Julia Wallace's time of death around 8 p.m., based largely on the rigor mortis that happened to the body, which even back then in the 1930s was and still is an unreliable way to deduce time of death. And that was known, and I guess just for whatever reason, that was just his way of doing things. But later, after hearing more about the investigation and like what was brought to the detectives by the witnesses, the milk boy, for example, he was like, oh, well, she was like last seen alive around 6:30. You know what? Actually, I think her time of death was earlier than 8 o'clock. Like he's truly just like flip-flopping his opinion. Doesn't seem super reliable. I was like reading the testimony from him and I'm like, it's giving like fake it till you make it.
Yeah, there's not much science at play here.
It's giving like, you know, I am going to walk in here and look super smart in front of all these people, and then I'm still going to like change up my opinion later. And so technically, like, we really can't take anything that this guy says as fact or science, because he's like flip-flopping his decision based on what sounds good, which, you know, isn't the way to do an autopsy. Police then decided that the Qualtro call, so remember the call that was made to the chess club, was the key to unlocking this locked door mystery, which I actually really agree with. I do think that they're linked. What do you think? Like, do you think if we figure out who the caller was, we would know who the murderer was?
Now that you say that, I'm still going with James, but
William. Who?
Who was James?
Sorry to laugh. This is like a serious story, but
where's James come from? William is still my number one suspect.
Okay.
But are you suggesting that maybe this Qualtro call was to get William out the house?
Right. Well, that's like at the face of it. That's what I think we are led to believe. The appointment was to get William out of the house. So some, you know, mysterious person would come in and kill Julia. But there is obviously a possibility that that is like what they want us to think. And that there was another window of opportunity for William, if it was him, to murder his wife.
Could be all just trying to create your own alibi as well.
Exactly.
This is like a made-up person, Qualtro, that we don't actually know who it is. It's in a made-up place that doesn't exist.
Right.
This could be
little smoke and mirrors.
A little game that William's playing.
Right. Did William Wallace orchestrate this whole thing on his own? Send himself on a wild goose chase at the very time that Julia was murdered, and then, you know, theoretically murdered, quote, and then talk to a bunch of people on the tram and in the Menlove Gardens neighborhood, which gave him the $1 million alibi for the time that he was on this journey away from the house. The problem with this theory is the fact that neither the waitress at the chess club meeting, Gladys, or Samuel Beatty, the club captain, recognized the voice on the other end of the call.
I mean, you can fake a voice.
Right. I guess, yeah. But Samuel, he's known William for 8 years at this point. And back then in the 30s, like, I don't believe there was like high-tech technology to like disguise your voice like there are today. Like with AI today, it's scary what you can do to disguise your voice.
Don't even get me started on that.
I don't even want to know. Like, I fell down a rabbit hole recently about how if you, like, you should change your voicemail so it isn't. Have we talked about this?
Yeah, you shouldn't use your
Did we talk
real
about this on the
voice.
podcast? I don't even remember, but like, you shouldn't use your voice. This is a PSA. In your voicemail, you shouldn't have it be like, "Hi, it's Katie, leave a message," because now AI has enough like of your voice to create like a fake voice of yours to like call your credit card company or whatever and like pretend to be you.
Yeah, well, just look at what they're already doing when there's, you know, artists that have released, you know, any track or any
music.
Any music, you can take that voice and turn it into any song you want.
Right.
I have a guilty pleasure.
What's your guilty pleasure?
It's so embarrassing. I don't know where I came across this.
What is it?
But it's famous songs that are then sang by SpongeBob SquarePants characters.
Okay.
So you can like hear like Plankton singing Usher songs.
I mean,
I need a few drinks in the system for that to become funny to me. It's not a daily occurrence by all means.
I feel like that's like
something I've
so
stumbled across.
Harmless. Like at its core, like that is such a harmless thing, and it's for entertainment. I think if someone is profiting off of that, like if there's like a way that someone will make money from that,
YouTube
like, then there are issues.
Like, do you know the song "Beggin'"? Like I'm begging, da da da. You know that one?
Oh yes, I do. Yes, sorry, it took me a second because your rendition was not.
I don't have a good sing. I don't have a good singing voice. But if you Google Plankton AI begging, I promise you won't be disappointed.
You won't regret it. Anyway, back to 1931 when this fictional person calls the chess club and is talking to Samuel Beatty, the chess club captain, and Samuel has known William Wallace for 8 years at this point, so, he knew his friend's voice. So if it was William, he would have had to do one heck of a job.
Sure.
Disguising his voice.
Okay, so we're heading into a direction that there's some other person involved here, or persons.
So the police had very little else to go on at this point, apart from this call and the fact that it took place when William wasn't there. So he very well could have made the call. So they followed this lead, and they traced the phone call to a public call box roughly 400 yards from William Wallace's house. So a 2 to 3 minute walk from his front door was this public call box where the call was placed.
So that doesn't help William's case.
Does not help William's case. So he could have disguised his voice enough that his friend of 8 years wouldn't recognize his voice, called the chess club, and still made it to the meeting. Late, but he was often late, chronically ill, slow-moving guy. He could have pretended that he'd never heard the name Qualtrough before and played dumb and was like, oh, where's Menlove Gardens East? Never heard of it. He could have done all of that. But that doesn't confirm that it was William who made the call, although it was very suspicious. But someone could have went to that call box knowing that it would make William look suspicious, and they are trying to pin this on William, making it seem like it was him that killed his wife.
True. Very true.
What are your thoughts on that?
I'm still pinning the blame on William right now. I need to hear some more evidence.
Yeah, it's not looking good for him. So let's go back to Alan Close, the 13-year-old milk boy. Alan said that he both saw and spoke to Julia Wallace and that she was very much alive at 6:30 on Tuesday night. And he said he knew it was 6:30 based on his calculations that he made mentally after passing the church clock. And like we discussed last week, this was his usual milk route. He kind of didn't really deviate from this usual route and his schedule. But during the trial, the prosecution and the defense really honed in and argued this particular timestamp. Was it 6:30 or was Alan mistaken and it was actually 6:45? And as a little refresher, this is why this key detail is important. It was between 6:40 and 6:45 that William Wallace allegedly put back on his lighter fawn jacket, not the Macintosh, after eating dinner with his wife, and he leaves the house to go meet Mr. Qualtrough. William then boarded the 6:49 tram and made his way towards the Menlove Gardens area, talking to a million witnesses, talking to the police officer, making sure his presence was known. The next step in the investigation was for the officers to test all of the timestamps that I just shared. Could William have possibly murdered his wife and still made it on the tram in time? So the investigators retraced his steps. They conducted tram and walking experiments to find out if the timeline was possible, and they found out that the timeline was possible. But possible is not the same as probable. And I say this because they, of course, used younger, fit men to test the route that William took, which was yet another mistake that the police made because William Wallace is in his 50s at this point. He's not athletic. We know that he had these severe health problems. He quite literally just recovered from the flu. And I read some places that he literally only had one kidney. So
Which also begs the question, would he even be in a physical state to hurt his wife?
And brutally. It was 11 strikes to the head.
Yeah.
That's a lot to then make it, we'll discuss that. But yeah, the theory that William Wallace did it, that we've been talking about, required not just evidence of the timeline working out, but also there were some other key details that were missing. There wasn't even a drop of blood on William Wallace, and yet it was a very bloody scene. There was no shot that the assailant would get away without any blood on him, unless he scrubbed himself rigorously for a while. 10 or 11 strikes to the head, that's you're gonna get blood.
Oh,
all over you.
It's going to be a mess.
And if he were to do this, William Wallace didn't have a long time. If he killed his wife between the time that the milk boy Alan saw her alive at 6:30 or 6:45, either way, and when he boarded the 6:49 tram, to go find Mr. Qualtrough, that gives him, give or take 15 minutes to kill her. Like, even if Alan was wrong and it was truly 6:45, like, that gives him even less time. But if he was right and it was 6:30 when he saw Julia Wallace alive, that would give him, like, more or less 15 minutes to kill his wife, destroy the murder weapon somehow, because we never found the murder weapon.
Get out clean
himself up so not even a speck of blood was left in his body, get redressed, and make it to the tram. Factoring in that he was not a healthy man, and so he was slower moving, and that the tram stop was at least a few minutes walk from the house. So
do we think...
Is this even physically possible?
So we think maybe he leaves for the tram, for the 6:49 tram, and she's murdered after he leaves?
That's what he's claiming.
Yeah.
He's claiming that she was very much like they ate dinner together. He gets back around 8:45 and she's dead. So there was no injury matching weapon left behind or noticeably discarded or destroyed. No witnesses, which is wild because remember I said, and on YouTube I'll put a visual, the houses were so close together.
So they have no murder weapon?
No murder weapon.
Okay, that's going to be a huge...
Nothing that matches the injuries like to a T. So the police are trying to they're like, okay, a lot of things are like turning now towards someone different, not William. Like maybe there's another assailant that isn't William, but they were like, no, it's got to be William. Like they were very much tunnel vision, very pigeonholed in one idea that it has to be the husband. And so they're doing whatever they can to just like find any shred of evidence that points to him and like disregard everything else.
Well, they probably just want a quick, clean
open shut
case, done. Move on to the next one.
They're also trying to avoid scrutiny from the public over the fact that they like kind of, they messed up some things in the investigation. They had a drunk guy on the scene. They let the cat roam around the dead body. They didn't secure things as well as they probably should have. And so they're like, we need to get this like over and done with. Okay. Like,
yeah,
ASAP.
That makes sense.
So their first, tactic or their first mission was to try to figure out why there was no blood on William. And they were trying to like figure out, what could we say to a jury to be like, this is the reason why. So they leaned heavily on the Macintosh jacket that was found underneath Julia. Here's their theory. So they were like, William wore this raincoat during the attack, removed it afterwards, and that's why he was clean, because all the blood was on the jacket. But like, what about like the clothes he was wearing underneath?
No, because a Macintosh, I hear that, because a Macintosh is like it's like a plastic material covering, almost like an umbrella. Right,
but like still, if you're doing a brutal attack like that, you're going to get blood on other parts of you. Yeah. Like your clothes you're wearing underneath. This jacket doesn't cover everything. The pants, for example, like his pant legs, like would those have had blood on it? So back then they still had this blood test that they could do, like on the clothing. So they did a highly sensitive benzodine test and applied it on the clothing that William was wearing that night, and found no hidden blood stains of any kind on his clothing. So even if he had tried to like hastily clean off his clothes, obviously there's blood all over the Macintosh jacket, but the clothes he was wearing underneath had no trace of blood, and no bloody clothing were found in any other rooms of the house. And so the police were like, okay, crap, that's not going to be it. Like, how do we explain no blood on his clothes?
It's like American Psycho.
Yes.
Christian Bale, when he like puts on his almost hazmat suit style.
Oh my God, yeah. Yeah. That's actually so true.
That's what I'm picturing right now.
So what the police then deduced was, okay, all right, he was still wearing the Macintosh, but underneath, William Wallace was completely naked. He was butt naked underneath, and that is why the clothes that he was wearing didn't have any blood on them. And so then he initially tried to unsuccessfully burn the Macintosh coat to like destroy the evidence of it before abandoning that idea and just rolling it under her body. all within the span of about 15 minutes and making it to the tram, fully clothed, no blood on him.
Whoever did kill her, why would you leave the jacket underneath her?
Well, they tried to burn it and they ran out of time, maybe. I also read that this is like unverified, but maybe part of her was burned as well. Like she was a little bit burnt, like her clothing, which could mean that they were maybe trying to put the jacket under her, light it on fire to burn her
Maybe set
body.
the house on fire, maybe.
Yeah, burn the whole house down so there would be no evidence and they just like couldn't do it, couldn't figure it out. / they maybe didn't have time before they were maybe potentially seen. But anyway, so the police landed on the naked under the Macintosh jacket as their full theory. And
quite the visual.
That gave them enough cause to arrest William Herbert Wallace for the murder of his wife.
Okay, so he gets
arrested
put in handcuffs
on February 2nd, 1931. And so then the case went to trial in April of 1931. So
couple months in jail.
Months in jail. And at the trial, what do you think happened? Do you think they found the evidence to be enough? The jury?
I'm going to say he got guilty. Found guilty.
William Herbert Wallace was convicted by the jury of his wife's murder on circumstantial evidence alone and sentenced to death.
Ugh.
What do you think of that?
I don't know if I agree with being sentenced to death under circumstantial evidence. If you are clearly the killer, then
then it's not circumstantial.
I don't really have an issue with that.
It wouldn't be circumstantial then. It would be like hard evidence. This is like...
Cool. So was he hung?
1 month later, after William was convicted, the Court of Criminal Appeals overturned the verdict.
Okay.
Not because William was proven innocent, but because the case rested on speculation. Too much circumstantial evidence. The police didn't have enough facts. So William was released.
Oh, I thought you meant like his sentence.
He was released from jail.
Downgraded from death, from the gallows to back in jail. Okay, so he went from guilty, death penalty, basically, to you're now a free man.
Exactly.
Without any other...
No
other suspect.
Well, so we'll get to that. So to this day, people still believe that William got away with murder. The one key detail that explains this to a lot of people, the people that are like, William is guilty, is the lack of forced entry and the fact that all the doors were locked from the inside. Like William is the only person, or someone who had a key, he's the only person that could have locked and unlocked the doors, which makes this one of the most famous locked door mysteries. Because if William didn't do it, who did? Who got inside and killed Julia without forced entry or exiting through a door without a key to then lock it up afterwards? So we have some other theories.
The milk boy hit her over the head with a bottle of milk?
No.
No?
Alan Close was never investigated as like a suspect in this murder.
And Alan was the neighbor, right? No, Alan was the milk boy.
Alan's the milk boy. He's the milk boy, and he was a 13-year-old milk boy, and he, cooperated with everybody. And
just saying.
I don't think anyone suspected him of the murder. Like, at least in my research, no one suspected him. So there must be a reason for that. But there are some other theories that researchers think are the most valid potential theories, other than the fact that William murdered his wife. Like, if it wasn't William, who could have done it? Because this mystery is officially unsolved to this day.
Ugh. So she had no justice.
I think you're going to favor one of these theories.
How many theories are we about to go through?
So we have a few. So a lot of people think that Richard Perry is the murderer of Julia. And you might be thinking, like, who is Richard Perry?
I mean, that's precisely what I'm thinking.
No, you're not losing your mind. We have not mentioned anyone by the name of Richard Perry in this story yet. But the Richard Perry theory was largely born out of research by this man named Jonathan Goodman and another man named Roger Wilkes. And Goodman and Wilkes, they're British true crime researchers and writers who became deeply involved in re-examining the William Herbert Wallace case decades after the murder. And a lot of people, there's a lot of books out there, some of which that we used for this research today, that have tried to figure this out, because it seems like, first of all, there wasn't enough done by the investigators, in my opinion. But then again, it was also 1931. So if this murder happened today, would it have been solved? Probably. In my opinion.
You never know, but you'd think with technology these days, you'd have a better chance at least.
I would hope so. But anyway, so a lot of people, like these two men, have tried their hand at figuring out this murder. And so this theory with Richard Perry, the mysterious Richard Perry, let's talk about him. So he was a junior employee at Prudential. Remember, William worked at Prudential. So he was a co-worker of William's, and a lot of people point to him as a possible suspect. Some people call him by his given name, Richard, and others call him Gordon, which was his nickname. But to play it safe, I'll refer to him by his last name, which is Perry. So Perry was a younger man. He was 22 at the time of the murder. So physically could have committed this murder, and was acquainted with William, who was, helpful to him at Prudential. Like, he occasionally kind of like helped him out with some clerical work related to the insurance business. Perry had access to William's paperwork and his routes because they were coworkers, so he would know, how to send William on a goose chase if he wanted to. Okay, and here's the smoking gun, why people think Perry has to be the guy. William had firsthand evidence that Perry failed to hand over all of the insurance money that he had collected from his clients. So William knew that he, wasn't being truthful and was keeping some of the money for himself. And so William confronted Perry about it, but ultimately didn't end up reporting it to their employer. But he did, of course, have this knowledge.
Sure, but you'd think Perry would be more interested in killing William rather than William's wife, because William's the one that knows this information.
Valid, but what if he wasn't intending on killing anyone? Perry, he has this history of theft. So do you think maybe he sent William out on this goose chase, not to kill anyone, maybe he didn't want to kill anyone, but to go into the Wallace's house and steal money from William's cash box?
He gets caught, it escalates.
He knew where. And, the fact that William had this cash box, they could have been chatting at the office like, oh, where do you hide your cash box in the house? Like,
no, I hear you.
7 feet up on the top of this bookshelf. Like, oh, yeah, I keep mine in a very similar place. Easy for him to maybe snatch William's keys somehow and copy them. Easy for him to make his way into the Wallace home, find the cash box, not think that Julia's there because she's napping because she has bronchitis, and freak out, not know what to do, try to burn the body, try to then throw suspicion onto William. So
did she get an insurance payout for her death?
Well, let's continue with the theory. Let's continue. Right. Okay. So it is plausible that Perry could have had the means to break into this house, find this cash box, and, steal from the Wallaces. The murder aspect, maybe was not planned. It wasn't premeditated. It just happened in the moment. And
definitely possible.
It's definitely possible. So Perry was known to have money problems. Like, not only did he have a stealing problem, which ultimately one kind of leads to the other, had money problems. He had a criminal record for theft-related offenses, so it wasn't his only time stealing, and enough insight into William's day-to-day to know how to lure him away using a fake insurance appointment. So if you subscribe to this theory, Perry made the Qualtro call deliberately, knowing that William would go and try to find this fictional person. Perry then went to the Wallace's house himself, either intending just robbery, Julia Wallace, unintentional collateral damage. And he's one of the few people in this case with means, motive, and opportunity to make that Qualtro phone call. Yet there's no direct evidence placing him at the Wallace's home on the night of the murder. No witnesses, nothing he left behind. Again, no fingerprints that were, but he could have been wearing gloves, and no murder weapon. To this day, we still, don't have anything on him. What are you thinking about Richard Perry so far?
It's tough to go, you want to go rob someone, you end up killing their wife. I think that's a stretch. And then getting away with it.
Yeah.
Because if you go in, again, this is someone with zero murdering experience here on the mic. Just to be clear.
Let's hope.
I think you have a better chance of getting away with murder if it is planned, so you can do things like make sure you're naked under the Macintosh coat so you leave no blood.
Right.
If you go in and you're trying to steal and you're caught off guard, like, oh shit, someone's in the house, and you panic and you hit them over the head and you've knocked them out and you've killed them, or that you have a little bit of a scrap and a fight, there's going to be a mess because it's not this meticulously planned execution.
Also, that could also mean that he maybe didn't have a disguise. He didn't have something over his face. And Julia, in theory, knows her husband's coworkers. Yeah. So that's why she had to be disposed of, because he would need to get away with it.
I struggle to see there being that level of shock and, collateral damage situation, but they walk out freely with no damage and there being no, signs of foul play.
P.D. James, who is an English crime writer, was the person who came up with this next idea, though she ultimately rejected it. I think she actually is no longer with us. So she, in the past, ultimately rejected this theory that she had, but she's the first person to bring this to light. And she speculated that Perry may have made the Qualtrough phone call as a prank, possibly because of what I said earlier about how William knew that he'd withheld money from Prudential. But once again, no solid evidence and no confession from Perry. Another theory is endorsed by another crime writer named Anthony M. Brown, based on earlier work by researcher Rod Stringer. And in this concept, Perry is neither a prankster nor the killer of Julia, but he is the architect of the plan. An unknown accomplice of Richard Perry's then went to the Wallace's home, posing as Qualtrough, expecting an empty house, and instead Julia Wallace was home. When confronted, the burglary escalated into violence. Brutality of the attack under this theory reflects panic rather than premeditation, so kind of what we were saying. The lack of forensic evidence linking Perry or William directly to the scene is simply because of the fact that neither of them were there. It was this mysterious accomplice who did the dirty work. Maybe they were experienced and destroyed all the evidence. But once again, this accomplice was able to either force his way inside, maybe by charming Julia.
Like a professional assassin.
Yeah. Maybe he was, knocked on the door. Julia comes to the door. He's like, hi, I'm here to meet your husband about an insurance matter. And she's like, oh, well, my husband's out. But feel free to come in.
I'll make you a cup of tea.
Yeah. And so that explains. And then she, lets him in, then locks the door up behind him. He sees where the key is, then does the deed, brutally murders Julia, and then takes the money and locks up. It still doesn't really make sense. Then, I don't know, he would have to take the key with him. The locking of the doors is what I'm really stuck on here. And I don't feel like the police did enough to investigate that fact and locate all potential keys, go interview key makers in the area. None of that was done. Try to figure out if there were any duplicates. I think that's a really big sticking point here that I don't feel police did a great job investigating. I've done so much reading on this case, and my friend Sarah Schilling, who helped me with research, and there's just so much that was not done, that wasn't done.
Well, what is so irritating about these unsolved cases, or cold cases, whatever you want to call them, is the fact that even with 1930s, so gosh, 90, nearly 100 years have gone by, and they still haven't figured it out. And something did happen.
Something happened.
No one vanished into the house and murdered Julia. It wasn't a ghost. It wasn't some extraterrestrial being. Someone murdered her.
Right. So another theory that has nothing to do with Richard Perry or this potential accomplice is that the person who killed Julia Wallace was a stranger to everyone involved. Maybe it was a burglar or an unknown stranger that entered the house while William was away, not even knowing that he was away. And, still, somehow got Julia to open the door because no forced entry, like we said. So like somehow got in the door and maybe posing as, who knows, someone of the time that would make sense that
William
she would
got
open
away
the door
with it.
to. And maybe it was a chance opportunity by someone totally random. And reminder that Amy Wallace, the sister-in-law, claimed that Julia and herself were having a conversation about recent burglaries in the area. So
True.
there had been, and it was the Great Depression, so people were struggling and naturally doing things like that to stay afloat. And so...
But again, a burglary, but then you have the whole locked door situation. Where is the breaking and entering?
I think the major weakness of this theory is the fact that, number one, the cash box was really like obscured from, is that how you say it? Like obscured from view? Yeah. It was
Wasn't
in a very
an
random.
Obvious...
Yeah, I'll have to show you the photo, but there's photo evidence. Like they, took pictures.
It wasn't
the few
an
things that they did on the scene.
eye line, right?
Right. It was like 7 feet up. You would have to like climb on top of a chair to like get up to it. And it was hidden. They like honestly had a lot of stuff in this house and it was kind of hidden. So it leads me to believe you would have to know where it is unless, this person was armed and Julia in her state of fear for her life was like, take the cash box. There it is, which is feasible. But the fact that they didn't take Julia's purse or her jewelry or anything else, just that cash, like it's suspicious. And the violence that took place, strikes me as excessive and very passionate, being like a brutal attack, not just one strike and she's dead. There was like 10 or 11 strikes to her head. That is brutal and it's passionate.
And that's typically paired with someone you know.
Right.
It's William. William got away with murder. And he got sentenced to begin with. I agree that you shouldn't get the death penalty or a heavy sentence over circumstantial evidence. I think there should be. So I agree then they let him go. But I think he did it. I think he orchestrated it.
You think he had the strength to do it? You think he had the strength to do that and then make it in 15 minutes? He did that?
I think the timing is a little bit askew. I think he made it.
Well, the final theory I was going to share that you clearly don't subscribe to, but is the fact that there was someone close to Julia herself that no one really knows about or doesn't really know super well enough to like have looked into deeply, but she had, welcomed someone that she knew into the house, either voluntarily or under false pretenses, and that would explain the lack of forced entry. Did she have a lover? I mean, I feel like people always point to this with like cases of women being murdered. Maybe men too, but like, it's like, oh, did she have a lover? Was she cheating on her husband? Like that was a lot of people during this time period would like jump to that. Like, oh, she clearly was cheating on her husband. People still do that today, but I don't really think this is like value. I feel like there'd be someone in her life that was like, oh, she had a lover. Then again, she wasn't very social. So maybe it was easy to hide that, but like, it wouldn't be the first case of a jilted lover or
wouldn't be the first and won't be the last.
Trusting the wrong person, so.
I keep asking you, did William get an insurance payout?
Some sources say that the life insurance policy that William had, or the Wallaces had on Julia, was worth 20 euros in 1931, which would equate to, this is like $20. Actually, wait, euros is different than dollars.
That's pounds. We're in England, darling.
Oh, what did I say? Oh my God.
You said euros.
You
England
guys.
is in Europe, but we have the Great British Pound.
I'm really sorry. I saw that symbol. I was like...
I was waiting for you to correct yourself.
Anyway, okay. TLDR, the life insurance policy would have been worth around like $400. $400, give or take.
During a Great Recession, stretches even further.
True, but like there wasn't any evidence that they were doing badly with money.
True.
At least in my research, there wasn't. I feel like that would have been a huge layup for the police to have used that in their defense or in their prosecution.
Given everything we know, the right thing has happened. No one's actually been arrested because there just simply is not enough evidence for anyone to be found guilty. with that being the case, I just have to go to the most obvious, being the husband.
Right. And I read that the life insurance money went straight into his defense fund. And so it didn't really even end up benefiting him.
Gun to my head, who do I think did it? After both episodes, William.
But what was the motive? He just wanted her gone? He was sick of her?
He had enough of his wife. Ugh. I don't mean to make light of the situation. It's tragic, but...
I mean, people do crazy things when they're under stress, especially because he was chronically ill, and maybe he somehow...
It maybe started as a fight. Maybe it wasn't a planned murder.
And he just lost it.
But to murder your wife and then still go out and play chess or go on a jaunt to wherever that place was...
Right.
That's odd.
But people do it. You read about it today.
The whole story is odd, which is why it's not been solved, which is infuriating.
And I'm like, I wonder if it ever will be. But beyond the mystery surrounding her death, Julia Wallace was, let's not forget, a real person, artistic, musical, thoughtful, and deserving of compassion and remembrance and sadness for her brutal death that she certainly did not deserve in any way, shape, or form. And it is truly so sad that it hasn't, all these years later, 94 years later, has not been solved. But there is still hope. And that's why we have to tell these stories and keep talking about her and keep her memory alive.
Justice.
Exactly.
Will be served.
Hopefully. Fingers crossed. But if you're wondering about what happened after the trial, so it was actually very sad what happened to William in the wake of his wife's death. By all accounts, he really did care for her, and there's a huge chance that he had absolutely nothing to do with her murder. Even though you think he did it, a lot of people still think that William did it. Comment down below. Let us know if you guys think William did it.
Are you about to tell me he died of a broken heart?
Well, like we said, he was released from prison as a free man, but he was not exonerated. He was not an exonerated man. Like, the court ruled that the evidence in the prosecution's case was insufficient, but they did not say verbatim, like, William is innocent of this crime.
Sure.
So
the local community would never have really accepted him back.
Of course. And especially during this, like, very uncertain time, the Great Depression, like, they want to believe, like, we know who the killer is, and there he is. It's William Herbert Wallace.
That was
not that it's gossip. An unknown. Like, they don't want there to be an unknown killer on the streets. Like, that's not a way to live your life. Like, you want to believe, the police found the man and it's him.
So what? He just turned into even more of a recluse and...
I mean, it hurt him it hit him hard socially because people in his community were still convinced that he was guilty, and therefore his career plummeted. He had to change jobs. He ended up in a clerical job at Prudential's head office and moved to a different town called Bromborough.
Show me it.
Bromborough? Oh, gosh, am I butchering this? I'm trying my best.
I don't want to read anymore. Bromborough. That doesn't even sound like a real place.
It's real.
Bromborough. That's how you would pronounce it.
It's not too far away from Liverpool. It's not too far away. But still, he had to move. And then he tragically passed away just 2 years after his release from prison at 56 years old. And today, William Herbert Wallace is buried in Anfield Cemetery next to his wife, Julia. And I will say the whole family, William's family, Julia's family, stood by William. They were like, William Herbert Wallace is not guilty. He did not kill our beloved Julia. There's someone else out there. And that is the bizarre, very sad story of Julia and William Wallace. And I really hope that somehow, even 94 years later, we could figure out who took Julia's life away from her.
I just want it to be solved. Like, I don't necessarily want it to be the husband.
Right.
Because that would be sad. It's terrible for the family. You don't want any of your family members to ever be murdered, but I think you'd rather it be a stranger. You wouldn't want to hate a family member for the rest of time.
And someone that you trusted for so long.
That would leave you with, a lot of issues.
Right. So even though the culprit is definitely dead by now, it would bring justice to Julia's, her family's descendants and her, who deserves an end to this story that makes sense. And so Also, it could be like someone's son or daughter or grandson or great-granddaughter that somehow carries this secret, knows that...
You never know.
Someone in their family did this and got away with it. And I really just hope that the truth comes out one day.
Well, I think that's a good place to leave the episode. Not on a light-hearted joke, but we need to get justice for...
Yes. Justice for Julia Wallace.
Justice for Julia.
And potentially William Wallace. William Herbert Wallace. That is his name. So another unsolved mystery, but don't worry because I have a lot of solved mysteries coming up.
Yeah, can we have something next week that's...
Yeah, a little bit more cut and dry.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I have a lot of things up my sleeve, guys. You just have to stick with us. Keep listening week after week. As always, please give us evidence of you listening. Like, subscribe, answer Jack's question.
Let me know what you're screaming into a microphone.
Yeah.
Your favorite karaoke
song. I was like, screaming into a microphone. Hey, some of us don't scream. Some of us perform. Some of us sing beautifully at karaoke. I'm performing. I genuinely am like, maybe this is my big break.
Hey, I might end up at a karaoke bar tonight. You never know.
We'll see.
I'm heading out in the town tonight.
Jack's heading out in the ton. I'm editing this episode. That's my big night out.
What was that kind of accent you just tried?
The ton. Well, you clearly don't watch Bridgerton.
Oh, no, I don't.
That's what they call the town back then. And the ton.
All right.
T-O-N.
I'm proven wrong.
Anyway, thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of Mystery for Two podcast. And that's a wrap, I think.
Yeah, we'll see you next week.
See you next Monday. Bye.
Cheers.